the October 26th, 2016 meeting of the Lehigh County Board of Commissioners. Before we get started, I'd like to ask our clerk if he would please call roll.
Commissioner Brace?
Here.
Commissioner Creighton?
Here.
Commissioner Doherty?
Here.
Commissioner Hartzell?
Here.
Commissioner Osborne?
Here.
Commissioner Holt?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Schwer?
Here.
Eight present, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Nostine has notified the office he'll not be in attendance this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded for the public record and ask if you'd please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, wow.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, have there been any executive sessions held since our last meeting?
No, none since the last meeting of the board.
Thank you. The agenda does show that we have the minutes from our last meeting for the board to approve. However, they're not quite ready, so we'll entertain them in our next meeting. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item. Would someone like to take advantage of that opportunity?
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Hilliard, South Allentown. This isn't directly related to the budget, but it is about this cash issue I've been raising for many months now. Last Wednesday, I hope you all picked up on that. The county executive had a very interesting statement. It's tough when the administration always gets a rebuttal and citizens really don't, but I'm a patient man. He made the comment he did not want to debate with me how much cash was or wasn't available. Now, let that sink in for a second, because how much cash is available or isn't, or what encumbrances are on whatever cash amount we have in the bank, those are all quantifiable. They're non-debatable. They're on a piece of paper, or they should be. So my question is, he has a very valid point. That shouldn't be a debate. We could debate priorities of uses of the cash, and should it be encumbered for this project, or is it a more important project, et cetera. But the actual amount is non-debatable. So why is this, I've been asking since March, I've actually been asking for a couple years in a more vague manner, but as I've learned the system, I've been asking for this detailed information since March. Why is this being treated like a state nuclear secret? What the heck is going on? And this board, it's one of the better governing entities I have witnessed or worked with, and I work with activists around the state. So it's not an exaggeration to say the reforms and the bipartisan efforts to improve things has been fantastic, but I'm really disappointed. You're making decisions of tens of millions of dollars, and no commissioner seems interested. And one of the most fundamental questions is, how much cash do we have in the bank? How much is encumbered and for what? And how much is free? It's getting quite disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Hi, my name is Frank Gerlach. I'm a Lehigh County resident, voter, taxpayer, and employee. Just sort of little things. Anyways, budget season. I was up here a few months ago, and I said, I made a comment that, working for the government's wasteful, it's inefficient. And as much as we strive to improve that, I think there's always ways to make more improvement. I offered for anybody, if they wanted to come talk to me about that more in detail, I'd be more than willing to do it. And then maybe at some point in the future, I'll be up here, one of my colleagues will be up here again, depending on how the next few weeks go. Every day I came in here as a worker, I'm frustrated, and as a taxpayer, sometimes I'm quite frankly appalled at how things are done. Not all on the board, there's plenty of blame to go around with that stuff. So, I think there's plenty, when it comes to looking at budgets and how do we save money, there's a lot of ways we can do it. A lot of mismanagement, nepotism, a lot of things we can get into, but so I'm not going to get in that detail right now. More what I'm here for is kind of more optimism. I heard some of the things, I wasn't at the meeting last week, I was told secondhand, I'll wait for the meetings to get approved and read those. But from what I heard, some of the things that came out of the board, and please correct me if I was mistold, were encouraging. I know we had some people at the podium come up and speak about, the importance of workers and morale. It might have been, I believe maybe Commissioner Jones that had spoken about the image of the board to the workforce. And in those instances, I mean, you guys are exactly right. I mean, there is an issue, there is a problem. It might actually be worse than you think. But then, to hear you guys address that from here, as we have in the past coming up to the podium, and then also too with Commissioner Osborne having spoken about, some disparities in some pay in some areas. So I mean, there's plenty of ways to save government money, and anybody who works for the government, I mean, it's not always, the surface is not always what it is, and if you want to know the dirt, you go to the people doing it. We'll tell you. But it should never come on the backs of the citizens and the people we serve. And in my department, it's the most vulnerable. It's the intellectually disabled, the drug dependent, children of or victims of physical and sexual abuse, mentally ill, intellectually disabled, and children who require early intervention services. And these are all services that are actually preventative services that save money in other areas. And we are completely integrated with other county systems and departments, law enforcement, corrections, courts, a lot. If we ever cease to exist or we're not here, a lot of people would know, and it would be very problematic. It will create a lot of problems. So I just, when we're looking at how we save money, let's look at where we can make things better and not take it out on those vulnerable populations, and also to just, citizens in general. Everybody in some way or form receives a service, but also to the hardworking men and women across this county, in my department and elsewhere, who provide very valuable and needed services to the entire community. And just to kind of build off of some of what was said last week, and some of the amendments that were proposed and things like that. As far as pay discrepancies, and one of my colleagues is here to give you a handout for each of you. There are pay discrepancies across the county. In my unit where I work, there is a very large pay discrepancy between our non-bargaining counterparts and our and some other bargaining units. To the extent that if you were to take what we a net compensation that consists of pay, medical contributions, and leave time, we are, if you are a single employee on single health care, the gap is a negative loss of $5,903.89. If you have a family on your health insurance, it's $4,619.23. That is very significant. And where I work, we are out of a contract. Right now, we have worked as of 10/24, 1,028 days without a contract, and 2,124 days without a general wage increase. So, I said, hearing what some of the board said last week, I look forward to seeing the minutes. But I just, with the video, I think the video is up. But I'll take that as optimism, and I really hope that the board is true to its word on, the things that were said and dealing with the morale and the image of the board to the workforce, and also treating workers fairly and equally across the board. And we'll see over the next few weeks how some things go. And if anybody ever wants to know some of the things I talked about, wants to know the detail, please come talk to me. Talk to any of my coworkers. If you're serious about saving county money, please come talk to me. We'll show you underneath, not just what's on the surface. Maybe one day we'll be back at the podium and talk a little bit about it too. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Would anyone else like to address the board on a non-agenda item? Okay, hearing none, we have 4 bills before us this evening, second reading and scheduled for a vote. Mr. Clerk, may I ask if you'd please introduce the first of the Commissioner bills, 2016-2020.
Commissioner Bill 2016-20, amending the 2017 through 2021 Lehigh County Capital Plan to include upgrades to the old courthouse, sponsored by Commissioner Doherty.
Thank you. Madam Solicitor?
By this ordinance, the Board of Commissioners amends the 2017 to 2021 capital plan. The purpose of the amendment is to include rehabilitation work for the old Lehigh County Courthouse. The proposed amendment is attached to the ordinance as Exhibit A. Ordinance approval is required to amend the capital plan.
Thank you. Sponsor comments. Commissioner Dougherty?
Oh, that's a pretty good description, and we all know that the old courthouse is in terrible shape, and we have to bring it up to modern standards. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Schwer?
Just the amount before us represents from the cooperation from the judiciary and the commitment of the president and judge to actually vacate the facility so that it can be done at substantial savings to the taxpayer. I believe the amount that we're looking at now is about 10% less than what the original amount was, just by being able to do it in one shot. And, I appreciate that.
In terms of absolute dollars, that's about $1 million savings.
Yep.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Brace?
I'm excited to see the work on this begin and then come to conclusion. The historic courthouse is a significant piece of our civic life here in Lehigh County. It's one of the few remaining historic assets that we have in downtown Allentown that thankfully we're able to control and ensure its continuity for future generations. Government that works, as Commissioner Schwer indicated, civic life, lots of wins in this one.
Commissioner Brace? Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving Bill 2016-20, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill passes unanimously. Mr. Clerk, would you please introduce Bill 2016-21?
Commissioner Bill 2016-21, an ordinance authorizing a declaration of taking of a right-of-way from a portion of property of unknown owner to complete the Copley-Northampton Bridge project, sponsored by Commissioner Notstein.
Thank you. Madam Solicitor?
By this ordinance, the Board of Commissioners exercises the county's right of eminent domain to acquire property and easement rights from an unknown owner for the Copley-Northampton Bridge project. Ordinance approval is required to authorize a declaration of taking pursuant to Section 310A9 of the Home Rule Charter.
Thank you. Commissioner Notstein, who chairs the General Services Committee, is not with us this evening, so I'll turn to Commissioner Brace, the Vice Chair of the committee. Commissioner Brace?
Yeah, this is one of those almost unbelievable moments in the life of a community where you don't know who owns a piece of land. And this unknown owner piece of land is with a proposed right-of-way for renovations with the Copley-Northampton Bridge project that are still in the planning phase. As part of our due diligence, we will escrow money that would have been paid for the right-of-way. We will continue to advertise that this property is subject to the right-of-way provisions that we're looking to exercise. Hopefully we find the owner, hopefully somebody gets paid for what they are due. Until then, that's a bridge we hopefully won't have to cross. And get this project done because it's sorely needed for Lehigh County.
Thank you, Commissioner Brace. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, as I mentioned at the last meeting, I will be voting against it. I don't think we have exhausted all the revenues, all the avenues of finding out who the owner is. And taking a step of eminent domain is a very drastic step. So I hope we're not setting a precedent by bringing this before the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dougherty. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? Mr. Clerk, would you please take a roll call vote on Bill 2016-21?
There's a roll call vote on Commissioner Bill 2016-21. Commissioner Brace?
Yes.
Commissioner Creighton? Yes. Commissioner Dougherty?
No.
Commissioner Hartzell?
Yes.
Commissioner Osborne?
Yes.
Commissioner Holt?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
And Commissioner Schwer.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I've recorded 7 votes in favor and 1 vote opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The bill passes. Before we introduce Bill 2016-22, I just want to review a little bit of the process preceding this and the process going forward after this evening on this bill. This relates to the budget, which was delivered to the Public Input Board on August 31st by the county executive. The board had a couple months to review that budget, and on October 13th, we had our first reading of that budget. We had a special meeting last week, October 19th, where we completed the amendment process, and that brings us to this evening. So this evening, we're scheduled for a second reading and vote. Following this meeting, the county executive has the authority and opportunity to veto any or all of the amendments that this board may approve if this goes through this evening. And the deadline on that for the board's information to the public is November 6th. So this is just another step in the process. And with that introduction, let me say before I turn it over to the clerk, we had 33, 34 some amendments going into this process. 16 of those amendments were successful in our consideration this evening to be amended to the budget. So this is a budget that, if it's approved this evening, will have 16 amendments attached to it. And if it's not approved, then it goes defaults to the county executive's proposed budget. Mr. Clerk, with that, could you please introduce Commissioner Bill 2016-22?
Commissioner Bill 2016-22, adopting the 2017 Lehigh County budget and amending the job classification and pay plan for consistency with the 2017 budget. This bill sponsored by Commissioner Doherty. As the chairman noted, the copies available to the press and public this evening and on our website include all the approved amendments as an exhibit.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Madam Solicitor?
By this ordinance, the Board of Commissioners adopts the 2017 budget. The budget consists of exhibits A, B, C, and D, which are incorporated by reference. The proposed tax rate as amended is 3.64 mils, and the stabilization fund has a beginning fund balance of $24,890,000 and an ending fund balance of $19,402,985. Ordinance approval is required to adopt a budget pursuant to sections 310B1 and 702 of the Home Rule Charter.
Thank you. Sponsor comments, Commissioner Doherty.
Yes, this was a very long and arduous process, but I want to thank all of my fellow commissioners who joined us in the Finance Committee, working as a committee of the whole on the budget for let's say we played nice in the sandbox this year. It was really good to see the amount of discussion between us and the administration and between each of us in terms of, in some cases, reaching compromises on some of the issues. So I think in general, it's my personal opinion that we had a very friendly budget discussion. There was not a lot of hostility or antagonism that is often a hallmark of budget discussions in other counties. So we approached this in a very civilized way, and I want to thank all of you for your input, and also thank the administration for their input. And I will let it rest at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Hartzell.
I didn't say why I was opposing the budget last time, mostly because my colleagues pretty much covered it. But just for the record, I agree that I think stabilization funds is already, it's been coming down in recent years anyway. The administration's budget already clipped it for $2 million. I think that's enough, if not more than enough, not only because of the bond rating and just because, you know, ironically, I think it's the conservative in me that wants to keep that nest egg, just thinking of it as your household budget, you know, as high as possible. you know, you certainly would love to give tax cuts every time, but I don't think it's wise here. And I think it was Commissioner Schwerer last time that said, well, you know, if we give too much money back, we can always, if a compelling reason is made, to raise taxes later. I think that's a terrible way to think about this, and that, you know, I don't know, that's just it. I think it's poor planning for any kind of budget to think of things that way, and I think stabilization is coming down enough as it is with the administration's proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartzell. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Schwerer?
Yeah, just so we're clear, stabilization has been at $25 million for at least the last 4 or 5 years. While it's been budgeted to be reduced, the reality is it hasn't needed to be reduced and it's remained stable.
Thank you, Commissioner Schwerer. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input?
Joe Leonard, South Allentown. Again, the great government budget scam. Last year's budget was supposed to be a deficit. If you look at the audit, if you look at the cash report, if you look at any other financial report I could rattle off, you didn't end up with $25 million in the general fund. You ended up with $34 million, $9 million more than the $25 million for the stabilization fund. So I think a tax hike is more than justified. It's not going to harm anything unless the administration goes on a massive uncontrolled spending spree. So, which is why you need to keep tabs on a monthly basis on cash. Thank you.
Joe, you said hike.
Said tax hike, tax
Yes, he
hike.
did.
I almost fell off of my seat.
Yeah, I was grabbing my chest.
Last week, I did agree, if you go to a cash and carry basis, other than huge capital projects, tax hike might be justified, although, again, you paid $19 million to Wall Street last year, so I think you could probably cut taxes a lot if you went to cash and carry. But anyway, thank you for that correction. I hope the morning call gets that correct.
I was gonna just let it go.
Thank you, Joe. Would anyone else like to comment in the public on this particular bill? Final opportunities for commissioner comments. Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, may I ask if you take the roll call vote on Bill 2016-22?
This is a roll call vote on Commissioner Bill 2016-22. Commissioner Creighton?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartzell?
No.
Commissioner Osborne?
Yes.
Commissioner Holt?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
No.
Commissioner Schwer?
Yes.
And Commissioner Brace?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I've recorded 5 votes in favor and 3 votes opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Bill passes. Mr. Clerk, would you please introduce Bill 2016-23?
Commissioner Bill 2016-23, ordinance authorizing the County of Lehigh, Pennsylvania to issue its federally taxable general obligation bond series of 2016 pursuant to the Local Government Unit Debt Act. This bill sponsored by Commissioner Doherty. Commissioners, as is typical with debt issuances, we received updated paperwork on this bond issue today. It's been uploaded to our website and is available to the press and public this evening.
Thank you. Madam Solicitor?
The purpose of the bonds being issued is to refinance the taxable 2007 general obligation bonds, which were issued for construction of the county's baseball stadium. Ordinance approval is required pursuant to sections 302B and 310A5 of the Home Rule Charter.
Thank you. Sponsor comments. Commissioner Doherty?
Yes, this was a matter-of-fact type of issue because we were forced into this by the lease that we have on the ballpark with Gracie Baseball. The issue came in nicely. Would you like to step forward and
If you'd like, I'm happy to.
please do
Okay.
fill this in on the most recent information on the bond issue, which was put out for solicitation today?
Right. Good evening, members of the board. With the introduction there, go ahead.
Just for the record, may I ask if you give your name and...
I'm sorry, yes. Darrell Peck with Concord Public Financial Advisors.
Thank you.
Yes, with the introduction of Mr. Doherty. As was planned or proceeded, we did proceed with the, auction or bidding out of the bonds that are being considered by the board to refinance the 2007 taxable baseball bonds. As we discussed with you at previous meeting about a month ago, we go through that process of competitively bidding out the bonds that you're getting the best interest rate in the market. We did the usual preliminary steps. We prepared a preliminary official statement. That document, again, was provided to the clerk, and I believe is available to the board on your board docs. Certainly, if you have any, if you review it and have any comments, questions, please get it through to me. Another piece of great news. The Moody's Investor Service did reaffirm the county's bond rating at a AA1. It's a very strong rating. We talked about that at the last meeting. What that means is you can get, good, favorable rates. I mean, your rating is always high as the United States government. So, congratulations, and that really bodes well for the county and gives you great reception. So with that intro, we bid out the bonds today. The most favorable rate came in from Fifth Third Securities, actually out of Ohio, at a rate of 3.43%. There were 7 bidders, or 7 firms who bid on your bonds. We actually got 39 bids from those 7 firms. And even those 7 firms are made up of what you call syndicates or groupings, so that actually comprised about 48 firms. What that means is 48 firms across the country had interest in buying the county's bonds, again, because of the strong rating. The range in interest rates we got ranged from about 3.43% to about 3.77%. So again, it shows why we go through this process to get you the best rate, and you got the best rate. I'm happy to go over any other of the results, but I guess, congratulations to keep up, the good financial standing and keep that rating.
Thank you, Joe.
Sure.
Thank you. Just one question is that I don't think I've ever seen Fifth Third vote or come in and bid on any of our bonds before. Is this because they have grown substantially over the years, or it just seems strange that what I would consider a regional bank would be in the running?
Yeah, I don't necessarily recall if they did or didn't. I think you might be right. I don't recall myself either. Maybe one of the reasons is they are taxable bonds, so it's more attractive to the United States in its entirety compared to a Pennsylvania tax-exempt bond. So that might be one of the reasons for. Because of some of the other firms, there was a firm from Georgia, a firm from Tennessee, and a firm from Wisconsin who bid on the bonds. So along with the more local firms, Philadelphia and New York City. So that may be a response to your inquiry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Holt?
Yeah, I have a question, and maybe it's in the document somewhere, but perhaps you could just highlight for me. So previously, what was the anticipated total cost that the ballpark was going to be paying with the principal and the interest combined? And then now that they've refinanced, what would that total cost be?
Are you talking total principal and interest over the entire term? You're not talking annually?
No.
Okay. The total principal and interest that would have been paid, I'm going to use a round number for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
$27.9 million. And the new number is actually lower at 26.4 million. So a savings of, just shy of $1 million.
Okay.
What was the annualized amount? Could you run through those one more time, please, Darrell?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's best to hand this out.
No, I got 1.4,
Okay.
27.9 and 26.4. I got a 1.5 million.
Yes, that's right.
Unless I misunderstood.
They said 29.
27.9 and 26.4.
I'm sorry. It is 27.3.
27.3, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm
Good math catch. I'm not much of a numbers guy.
Commissioner Doherty.
Yeah, just so the public knows that this is not money that's going to be paid from the county. This is going to be paid by Gracie Baseball.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. I think that's an important distinction as well, clarification.
And just my original question, so just out of curiosity, so what is the reduction in their annualized payment? Because as Commissioner Doherty said, in our contractual agreement on the lease, we cannot charge them more than what the annualized debt service is.
It's about $350,000.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Schwer?
Yeah, as I said last meeting, I'll be voting no on this. As we just heard, the lease, the max we can charge them is what is here in the, for the bond payment. We can't deal with any issues such as maintenance. Right now, that's being entirely borne by the taxpayer. I have a problem with that. By approving these bonds, we extend that agreement by another 9 years, and I can't support that.
Thank you, Commissioner Schwer. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Holt?
I just will say that while I agree with Commissioner Schwer and would probably like to vote no on this because we're contractually obligated to fulfill our agreement under the terms of the existing lease, I will be voting in favor of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Holt. Any other commissioner comments? Darrell, I'm sorry to have you stand there while we're commenting. Any other public input? Darrell, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Sure, thank you.
Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, may I ask if you take a roll call vote on Bill 2016-23?
A roll call vote on Commissioner Bill 2016-23. Commissioner Doherty.
Yes.
Commissioner Hartzell.
Yes.
Commissioner Osborne.
Yes.
Commissioner Holt.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
By law, I'm required to say yes.
Commissioner Schwer.
No.
Commissioner Brace.
Yes.
And Commissioner Creighton.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I recorded 7 votes in favor and 1 vote opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Bill passes. That brings us to the first of 2 resolutions before us this evening. Mr. Clerk, would you please introduce Resolution 2016-54?
Resolution 2016-54, approving a professional services agreement with Tyler Technologies Incorporated to implement an e-notice and e-signature system, sponsored by Commissioner Creighton.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
By this resolution, the Board of Commissioners approves a professional services agreement with Tyler Technologies. The purpose of the agreement is to provide software for the Court of Common Pleas to implement an e-notice and e-signature system. The proposed agreement is attached to the resolution as Exhibit A. Resolution approval is required for professional service agreements in excess of $10,000 pursuant to Section 801.1 of the Administrative Code.
Thank you. Sponsor comments, Commissioner Creighton.
No other comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other commissioner comments or input? Commissioner Holt.
I was gonna say, I'm really impressed with work that the courts are doing and trying to keep things current and find efficiencies. And one thing that impresses me about this is that it creates a more efficient product for them. It helps serve them and makes them better at what they do. It saves them time and creates more convenience for them. While at the same time, it's going to be saving the taxpayers money because the maintenance costs of this will be coming out of the Records Improvement Fund. But the savings they mentioned in postage and other areas are currently in the operating fund of the budget. So this will create some savings there while creating a better end product for everyone. So it's a win-win.
Thank you, Commissioner Holt. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving Resolution 2016-54, please say aye. Aye. Mr. Clerk, you might want to note for the record that Commissioner Jones had stepped out of the room for this vote.
Oh, thank you.
I don't mean to say he stepped out to avoid the vote. I'm just saying he's not in the he's attending to other matters. Mr. Clerk, will you please introduce Resolution 2016-55?
Resolution 2016-55, approving an extension for the professional services agreement with Arthur A. Swallow Associates for the second time. This resolution sponsored by Commissioner Nostine.
Thank you. Madam Solicitor?
By this resolution, the Board of Commissioners approves an extension to the agreement with Arthur A. Swallow Associates. The purpose of the agreement is to provide land surveying services to the Lehigh County Agricultural Land Preservation Board. The proposed agreement is attached to the resolution as Exhibit A. Resolution approval is required for professional services in excess of $10,000.
Thank you. Commissioner Grace, would you be prepared to speak to this?
Sure.
Thank you.
The committee recommends approval. This is an extension that's required, that does require commissioner vote. It's a $50,000 max, as Commissioner Holt pointed out in an email. This is actually, the line item for this particular contract is higher than the $50,000 contract. Expect the amount to be revised at some point in 2017. The reason for that is as we ramp up the agriculture preservation efforts. This is one of those contracts that is a holdover, and our per year cap is lower than what we are now budgeting. So we'll amend accordingly, but in the meantime, authorize the Department of General Services and our farmland preservation professionals to get the ball rolling so we can get about the business of preserving some much needed acreage.
Thank you, Commissioner Grace. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving Resolution 2016-55, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. That brings us to the closing items on our agenda. Are there any committee reports for the board and the public this evening? Commissioner Holt?
Yes, the board has received notice, the ERP contract has finally been finalized with the vendor, and so Commissioner Creighton and I met earlier this evening with Mr. Kennedy to review that and try and outline sort of a schedule for how we'll be reviewing that in the administrative committee. And we could use some board feedback on a couple of points. The plan right now is that on November 9th, we'll have a committee meeting to review the contract and have a presentation about it and ask questions if we need to. And then plan is to ask the committee at that time if they would be prepared to vote on it at our next meeting, or whether they would rather wait until the meeting after that. Mr. Kennedy did inform me he cannot make November 21st, and regardless of when it's approved, they would not be able to start this contract until January 1st. They would be prepared to begin work on it. So just want to make the board aware of that. Also, he let me know that Tyler, which is the vendor that the county is contracting with, has offered to come before a board if the board would wish them to. So I just want to make the board aware of that and ask if anyone sees any need to have them come and speak to our board or have questions for Tyler that they'd like them to be here to answer. If not, then I don't see the need for them to attend. So I'll let him know that their attendance will not be required. So,
Considering all the work that's gone into this, especially with Commissioner Creighton, I don't see why that would be.
so I just wanted to pass that on. He asked that I pass that on to the board. So that's sort of the schedule we're following. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, be sure to be emailing them, and don't wait till November 9th to email your questions. And if you have questions, just send them on as you get them.
Commissioner Holt, do you anticipate then in our next meeting, November 9th, we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail in committee?
Yes.
And then entertain the possibility of approving it, or first read that evening, or?
I was just thinking we would discuss it in committee, and then at the resolution, so we don't need a first read. So my thought was, because of, it's 150 pages of the contract, so I think it's appropriate to review it at one meeting and have an opportunity to digest the presentation and vote on it at a subsequent meeting. And whether that's November 21st or whether that's December 14th, it doesn't sound like it's gonna, our approving it sooner than later isn't going to affect the start date.
Okay. So what we can anticipate is committee meeting on the 9th, and no need for advanced planning to make a decision that evening.
No, I don't anticipate that.
And it's anticipated to be a resolution.
Right. Being a professional services agreement.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brace?
Committee report.
Yes.
The governance committee entertains the appointment of Mr. Clayton J.R. Reed this evening as Director of Director of Aging and Adult Services, although I'm sure Kay Achenbach would enjoy a vacation as Director of Human Services. But Mr. Reed made himself available to us this evening, and has agreed to keep line of communications open between now and our next board meeting, when we will take the matter under final consideration.
Thank you. Any other commissioner or committee reports? Any public input on those committee reports? Any commissioner announcements?
Mr. Chairman, there was some discussion about the remaining schedule for 2016. I have dates today. The rest of the year, the board meets Wednesday, November 9th, Tuesday, November 22nd, Wednesday, December 14th, and then again on Wednesday, December 21. And that concludes the regularly scheduled meetings for 2016.
Thank
That
you.
information is also on our website.
Thank you. Year's winding down, huh?
Quickly.
Any citizens' input at this point in time? Hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adjourn the public portion of this meeting and reconvene in executive session for the purpose of discussing labor negotiations. The board will not come back in public session this evening to take any action.
Motion by Commissioner Polk. Second by Commissioner Schwer. All in favor say aye.